Okay. Psalm 133 has 3 verses in it. 3 verses. No kidding, that's it. But it shows us something incredibly powerful. No, I mean, in this tiny little psalm of just a few words, it has the power to launch us out into the kind of life that is truly worth living. Some of you know this already. Some of you know the secret of Psalm 133. Others, if you heed the words and you step out and begin to live it, it will place you on the starting line of a life that is truly beyond your imagination. Not magical, not always easy, but a deeper and better life, and you will be forever glad that you stepped out and started into this type of life. Okay, so I'm going to read Psalm 133 now. You ready? It's going to take all of about 30 seconds to read the whole psalm. Here we go. David writes, "How good and pleasant it is when brothers live together in unity. It's like precious oil poured on the head, running down on the beard, running down on Aaron's beard, down upon the collar of his robes. It's as if the dew of Mount Hermon were falling on Zion. For there the Lord bestows his blessing," meaning in unity. In unity the Lord bestows his blessing, even life forevermore, it says. David, the author here, has a challenge on his hands. He wants to lift up this value of unity and harmony and people getting along well with each other. But he's not sure what descriptors to use to get the importance of this unity across to his readers. So he takes 4 quick shots at it. The first shot he takes is in verse 1. He says it's a good thing. It's a good thing. How good it is when brothers dwell together in unity. It's good. But that's not enough. So he goes on and adds a little bit more. He says how good and pleasant it is when people dwell together in unity. It's not just really good. It's also pleasant. Everybody likes pleasant. But then he thinks that more needs to be said here. So he uses an ancient Eastern picture that sounds absolutely awful to those of us that live in days like today. He says, like precious oil poured on the head, running down on the beard, spilling over onto everything else. It's so good, David says. It's like somebody dumping a quart of Valvoline over your head. And it's dripping down on your chin and over your body and down on your t-shirt and everything. It's that good, he says. Like we should understand that and go, oh yeah, that is so good. We love when that happens. Love it, love it, love it. But that doesn't quite cover it in David's mind. So he says it's like the dew on Mount Hermon. And the dew there, it flows down into the dry land and it waters the land below. Now, we don't know Mount Hermon, so we'll call it Mount Dora. Just like the snow melts atop Mount Dora and flows down and waters all of the pop beneath it. It's like that. So David says it's good and it's pleasant. It's like motor oil on a man's face. It's like Mountain Dew. We all know that's really, really good, right? Now, one thing that we do know for sure in this psalm is that David is pro-unity. You'd agree with me on that, wouldn't you? He is pro-unity. He loves it. He wants everybody to experience it. So do I. I think we should experience unity in marriages, in families, in extended families, in neighborhoods, in churches. Unity makes everything better. It makes everything better. All right. We all know this is a pretty turbulent election season. Not a lot of unity and love being spread around, if you notice that. Quite the opposite. And some of these mud-slinging ads, I mean, they're just so awful. The bickering has become full-time, and frankly, people are pretty tired of it. David would look at this and say, that is not a good and pleasant thing. What you're experiencing right now is not good and pleasant. So what do in a situation like this? We throw rocks at people we disagree with? We're told in Scripture to pray for those in authority over us. So we should pray our leaders to unity and to higher levels of function. We should pray for them. Now, what's interesting is that David here is saying that unity flows. It moves. It flows. It's like it's contagious. Growing up, I played team sports for years and years and years. I mean, I loved it. I played on dozens of teams. And I played on teams with unity. And I played on teams with no unity within miles. And the difference is staggering. The teams with that unity were ones that had a fun environment to be a part of, even in practice. And practice is not always that fun. It's where, drills are being worked on and team principles are being worked on through these drills and through wind sprints and all that kind of stuff. Not fun stuff in and of themselves. But on a unified team, even that type of stuff carried purpose and meaning and encouragement through it all. Not coincidentally, those are also the highest achieving teams that I ever played on. They were the most successful ones that I ever experienced. On the other hand, a disunified team is a nightmare. The games aren't even fun. Practices are almost intolerable. Nobody's encouraging each other. The players are in for themselves and only themselves. Blame is rampant. Insecurity rules. It's a toxic environment. No fun at all. And as much as I loved playing baseball and basketball growing up, that sucked the fun right out of it. Big time. You may have had experiences like that in other arenas of life, where there's just no unity to be found at all. But unity, friends, it can flow. It should flow. You know, I see the gang up here leading in worship, and you can tell that these folks like playing and singing together. They joke around before and after service, and beyond that, they care for each other for real. You can tell that. Unity flows from the stage down all the way into this chapel, and I love that. I love it. Did you know that unity can flow from a marriage that's unified across the table towards the children? Unity can flow from two business partners in a company throughout the whole staff, throughout the whole organization. Unity can flow from a coaching staff to a team all the way through. And that's actually what David was driving at when he talks about the oil flowing down off Aaron's head, down to his face, onto his beard, and onto his shirt, and the dew flowing from Mount Dora to water up or below. That's what he's talking about. Unity flows from where it's being experienced. There's a motion, there's a fluidity to it. It spreads. You almost can't stop its gradual movement. That's how unity works. It flows. Unity flows. Discerning people in a church can tell if the people up front are unified, if they love each other, if they're working together as a team, if they're in the whole thing together. It's in the air. You can kind of sense it. And when it's there, it's a good and pleasant thing. And the church can flow in that unity. And I can tell, because you people don't want to go home after a service. I want to say, don't you people have homes? You know what I mean? Everybody's just hanging out here forever. You know, in the Acts 2 church, the text says that the early believers devoted themselves to this kind of unity. And it says these words, they were together in all things. What a great phrase that is. Say that with me. They were together in all things. That's like unity on steroids right there. And the unity makes people on the outside of the church kind of stand up and take notice of what's happening and respect what's happening inside the church. There's such a magnetic power in unity. And when you sense it and you're on the outside of it, you're drawn towards the inside. Which is why David here very much affirms unity. And then later on, the Apostle Paul says to pursue it and protect it. Pursue it and protect it. In Ephesians chapter 4, Paul says these words which absolutely stick in our soul. Listen to these words, he says. Make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit. Goes on to say, through the bond of peace. We say, make every effort. Keep the unity of the Spirit. Once unity has been attained, he says, do everything you possibly can to keep it. It's that precious, it's that rare. Don't do anything ever to divide the church. Don't say divisive things. Don't act in divisive ways. Don't do anything to divide your marriage or your family. I mean, if you're at work and this temptation comes over you to say some bad stuff or maybe try to bring a split to a department or something like that, just stop in your tracks and pray right there and ask the Lord for help. Because unity is that precious and it's that rare. We want to be people, like Paul says, who make every effort to maintain the unity of the Spirit, to keep it, because it's so precious. Let me just shift gears a little bit here. A large portion of my church background is from a megachurch. And if you've not been a part of one before, it just means a church of 1,000 people or more. Megachurches have their ups and downs, their strengths and weaknesses, just like any small church. They're just a little bit different. And I say that from experience. It's not just theoretical musings from a safe distance. I know what I'm talking about when it comes to this. And I'm not sure if you have looked around lately, But we're not a mega church. We're not a mega church. You don't have to be very, very gifted at math in order to discern that. Our size used to agitate me, which is not shocking considering my background. But it doesn't anymore. It doesn't. I feel like God gave me a call many, many years ago that helped clarify my call in ministry. And it was simply this is what the Lord spoke to me. Do God's bidding with people I love. That's just pretty simple right there. Do God's bidding with people I love. And that came to me long before Life Church was even a thing. And it is actually very consistent with the vision, the big idea that God gave us for this church when we planted it. Because our big idea has always been this from the very beginning. Keep company with God and learn a life of love. That's what God called us to make our big idea. It's based on Ephesians 5:2 from the Message translation. That's always been that. Let me go back to the personal real quick. To do God's bidding with people I love. That's what I'm doing. That's what I've been doing. I asked the Lord for how He wants me to lead this body of believers in its current size and day. And I love the people that I'm leading. I truly do. I love you guys. It's a privilege and a joy all the time for me to be surrounded with all of you. I take incredible pleasure in that. And I don't take it lightly either. Now, I do know from experience how exhilarating it can be to be part of a large congregation. I know that. But the New Testament also references the unique manifestation of unity that's experienced and enjoyed in a smaller number. People who decide by intention to band together in a community of love. There are several circles of this kind of love right here at Life Church. And being a part of that, in a way, we love and we are loved. We serve and sometimes we are served. We celebrate one another and sometimes it's us that's getting celebrated. And when that kind of community unfolds and you experience and you live in that for a while, you realize it just doesn't get much better than this on this side of heaven. It's that precious. Acts chapter 2 says that the church consisted of larger groups and smaller groups. Sometimes around dinner tables, and it says these words, with gladness. With gladness. That means that they did it voluntarily. Nobody had a gun to their head. They were choosing to do this kind of stuff. Again, if you've experienced that kind of unity, man, it can take your breath away. It's really special. A couple things that you experience in the midst of that sort of environment. I'm going to give you a lot of things. I'm going to give you two of them today. The first thing you feel in the midst of an experience like that is personal affirmation and encouragement. You feel that in space. You feel personal affirmation and encouragement. You feel blessed. You feel really blessed. And it's quite personal. All right, I've noticed this more lately. But whenever the President of the United States concludes a speech, how does he end it? He looks at the camera and says, and may God bless America, right? And may God bless America. But here's the question. Do you feel personally blessed when the President makes that statement? Do you perk up and go, man, he had me in mind when he said that? Well, flaming narcissist might, but the rest of us are like, yeah, me and 350 million other people. There's nothing very personal about that at all. But contrast that, if you would. Contrast that with being with a handful of people that you're getting to know regularly. People that you care about. Maybe you've hung out for a while after here and talked for a while. Maybe you got a lunch or a coffee. Or maybe this little group got together and had dinner together. And dinner becomes more than a dinner because you begin to open up to one another a little bit more than in the past. Then you have that time together and you're starting your goodbyes. What kind of things are said at goodbye time? Great talking with you, Frank. I wouldn't miss this for the world. I'll be praying for your presentation at work this Friday, Valerie. Don't be nervous. God's got you. Proud of the way you're handling that deal with your son, Frank. I know it's difficult, but I'm praying for you. I'll be there for you. I'll be there with you after your surgery, Sally. They don't let me in the operating room, but I'll be close by, and I'll be on my knees. I'm praying for you. You're not alone. Text me if you need me, Jim. I'll see you on Tuesday, Mark. That's the kind of stuff that's said there. Whatever is said, it's personal. It's personal. And it's just so it happens that we're built by God to need that stuff. You don't need the God Bless America that much. You need the touch, the words, the communication, the look in the eye that says, I care about you, I'm there for you, I love you, and you already know that. But this power, which is incredibly powerful, it's best realized in the context of a small band of brothers and sisters with whom those kinds of words take on very, very special meaning because they're so personal. It's not general, it's personal. And can I say the obvious? Everybody needs this stuff, and we need it more than we think we do. Everybody needs words of encouragement and affirmation. We need it. Here's a second reason I think we'd all do well to surround ourselves with brothers and sisters that are closer than just an acquaintance. It's because we need help in applying God's words to our lives. We need help with that. Let me ask you, you ever have an experience here at church where something is sung or taught, and afterwards it raised questions in your mind? And you think, I wonder if some others here understood that more than I do. And maybe I should have a follow-up conversation over a lunch or over a coffee with somebody and see how other people are going to try to apply this to their lives. That is actually, when you have those kinds of thoughts, that's actually the Holy Spirit working inside of you, reminding you that one of the best ways to figure out how to apply God's Word is to interact with other people who are trying to do the very same thing. Talk with them about it. See how they're doing. So we see this happen in the New Testament. When Jesus would conclude a teaching to a large group, like the multitudes, how he talks about, when he's all done, well, the multitudes dispersed. And maybe afterwards, after they're cleaning up or gathering themselves together, Jesus and his disciples, one of the disciples probably raised their hand and go, I had a clue what he was talking about. I didn't understand that. Someone else may go, hey, it flew over my head too. I'm just clueless about all this. So they would sit down and they'd have a conversation, sometimes late into the night. That is the value of having a few friends walking this life of faith around you, alongside you. It's a shared journey. I don't know if you realize that. Christianity is a shared journey. I watch people walk in the back doors here, looking like they're carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders. They walk out a little bit later looking quite different. And they're thinking that maybe it is true. That maybe God's forgiveness is real. And you know why they think maybe God's forgiveness is real? Because they saw forgiveness and grace in the eyes of the human beings around them. And they think, well, if these human beings had forgiveness in their eyes, I wonder what God's eyes looks like. So when was the last time you were with a group of trusted friends and you said, you know, my act is not quite as together as I make it appear on the outside? Because when we crack that door open to our life, just a little bit, when we crack that door open, that's when you find real love. Anybody overdue for something like that? Honestly? It's available to you right here. And in the friendships that can be found right here. Because you have people that are walking the same faith journey as you are. All right, quick flashback to the megachurch. Plenty of times I had somebody come up to me after a big service that I spoke at, and they would tell me about this big decision that they're facing. I got to make a decision this week. Do I do this or do I do that? You know, I'm trying to decide. Well, what's the right counsel to give someone like that, someone that I don't really know? Do I just say, well, just follow your heart, son? That's kind of weak. Truth is, often I didn't give any specific guidance at all. And that might surprise you. It used to frustrate some people that I talked to afterwards. But I would say to them something like this. I'd say, you know, I cannot responsibly offer any type of specific guidance to your situation because I don't know you. If I knew you well, maybe I could help you with the decision. But not knowing you, I feel like it would be pastoral malpractice to give you specific guidance for a situation I don't know and I don't really know you. But then I'd say, well, surely you have a handful of close friends, loving friends that you could bounce this off, right? Some of the people that know you. And often the people would say, well, you know, I've never really gotten around to developing those kinds of friends because I'm a I'm an important guy, I live a busy life, I got a lot going on. I would let that hang in the air for just a minute. And then I could tell that the reality of the value of having trusted friends would begin to sink in. And then I would just pray that God would give them the wisdom to make a good decision, and that God would also bring them some people to surround them in their own life that they could live up close and close range with people that cared about them. So as I begin to wrap this up today, there's a question that lingers in the air. How do I get this kind of community? How do I get that? How do I wind up in one of these wonderful little bands of brothers and sisters where all this cool stuff goes on? Put another way, let me say this. Whose job is it to arrange this for me? Is there like a church.com match website that I can go to and fill out a thing online and shop for all these cool people to have these wonderful experiences with? Well, it doesn't really happen that way. I have been in ministry leadership for over 32 years, and we have tried dozens of ways to arrange for people to try to get into small groups. Most of them fail. Most of them fail. Every once in a while, a structure will work for a while. But the truth is, this is best done organically. The ones that last are done organically. The impetus is really on the individual. I will never forget when a single guy came to me after a service in the big church many, many years ago. And he said, I want you to put me in one of these great small groups that you've been talking about. And the guy added, but I'm only available between 6 and 7 a.m. every other Tuesday. And this thing needs to be really close to my house. And I don't want any weirdos in the group. And no married people, and no old people. Just college-educated, thin blondes. What do you got? What do you got? No, I exaggerate that, but only a little. Actually, only a little. The point is that approach really doesn't work. That doesn't work. If you read Acts chapter 2, it says that they took meals with each other in people's homes. What does that mean? It means they took some risks. They took a risk to go to someone's home. They took a risk to invite people over to their home. And sooner or later, when they feel a connection with some folks, they begin to meet with them more, and then God works through that. But this is our responsibility as believers, all of us. You've got to reach out. You've got to shake hands after a service. You've got to walk slowly. Don't sprint to your car afterwards. Walk out with someone. Talk with somebody. Have a cup of coffee. You got to invite somebody over for a lunch or out for a lunch or something like that. And you're going to have some misfires. You'll have some misfires. You're going to be really glad that you didn't make a blood covenant on week 1 with some of these relationships. But then other people are going to begin to grow on you a little bit, so you grow with them and you grow together. The point is, don't get discouraged. Keep trying. Keep reaching out. Keep trying to do this, because if you persevere, you will find yourself some night sitting around a table with a little band of brothers and sisters. And words will be flowing, and laughter will be flowing, maybe even some tears at some point. But at the end, you'll look around that table and you will realize that you're living Psalm 133. How good and pleasant it is when brothers and sisters dwell together in unity. God wants that for you, for all of you. I want that for you. I pray that you will seek it and that you will find it.